I'm Ray Williams of openimage.com.au. So today's task is going to be based around actions. First of all, what they are, how you can use the ones you've presently got, and how do we create new actions. So I'm going to bring an image in just to show you what an action will do for you. Basically, what you do is you bring an image into your system, and if it's something that you regularly will you want to do, an action that you regularly want to do, you can create like a macro. For those of you up with their Excel, you can create like a macro which will go through the steps each and every time exactly the same way. So first and foremost, I'll go through the ones which you presently got. So if you go Windows Actions, you should have your actions box pop up. Now mine, I've got quite a few different ones. If you've not got into actions before, then all you will see is default actions, and this is what comes with Photoshop generally. Now, so on this particular one, I think, right, I want to make it sepia. All I do is highlight the sepia one, come down to the play button here, which is the third button in from the left, and press. And there you go. It's as easy as that. So what it basically has done is gone through a whole set of instructions to make it sepia. And this is what the instructions here are. If you just press that little arrow there, it will open up everything. So this was done for you, as in done by Adobe for Photoshop, to allow you to be able to do this without having to create one. So the next step, of course, is now how do we go around creating one? Right, so let me just go backwards a little bit. I'll use my history for this one and go back to the original. Right, so here we are back here at the original. So we went from here to there, which I think quite cool. All right, let's go back. So in order to create one, what you effectively need to do, and what I'm going to do is do a simple putting a small stroke or border around the edge. Which will make life a little bit easier for every image, because obviously every image you produce, you may want to put something of a border around it. So I'm going to put a stroke going around the edge on the inside, and I'll show you how I'd go about doing this to make it an action. So first and foremost, I'll come down here and create a set, or a group if you want to call it. So creating a new set, and I'm going to call this My Actions. That's spelled right. So there we go. So there's my actions, right? So this isn't going to do nothing at the moment other than put all the actions I've just created into this set or group. Next thing, here, which is the one next to the dustbin, I'm going to start the action setup. So this is saying, right, what do you want to put into my action? So the name of it is going to be called border. And let's call this border 50, because I'm going to put a 50 stroke on it, you understand, as we go along, and ask you to record. But before I do that, make sure that you're in My Action so you know how to come back to it, and you can set a function key to this. I'm not going to do this to you for a minute because it's obviously very new, but let's just go with My Actions. So it's in the My Actions folder, and the actual thing is called border 50, and press record. So everything I now do from now on is being recorded by Photoshop to go into border 50. All right, so the very first thing I would do is come back to my layers, and I'll duplicate my layers. So there's the duplication of the layers. And now, because I'm going to add a stroke to it, I would double click here. So this is in the area to the right of the actual word here. So just in here, double click there. And once you double click it, you get what come up, the layer style. What I'm actually looking for in layer style is the stroke, which is here. Now this is very careful. If you click on stroke and then click on the area to the right of the stroke, you'll get all the parameters for the stroke. So the very first thing I want to do is go to changing the position here to inside. So I want the stroke to come inwards. You'll understand as you see it. And here I'm going to type in how many pixels I want it to come in. So let's go 50, as I've called it, 50. So at the moment you can see, if you look around the edge, it's just got a black one. I don't want a black one, so I'll change this to white and say OK. So there we have my border all put in. It's beautifully done. White is filled with white. Don't have to change the opacity because I'm happy with that is. I mean, it's quite a nice look, by the way, if you really want to play with that one. But anyway, for the moment, let's just roll with the way we've got. And it's 50 pixels. And if I say OK to that, it has done the border around. Right, so at this point in time, what it's done is it's recorded everything I've asked. The last thing I'll probably ask it to do is to collapse these two. Right, so I would press a command so that both are highlighted. Come down to my adjustment down here. Actually, no, sorry, you wouldn't do that. Just right hand click where you are and tell it to merge layers. And so therefore it's now merged. I'm happy with where it's at the moment. My action's now complete. So if I now press stop, which is the last button here, it's done a whole series of things here for me, including the last thing. As you can see, it's got there as merged layers. So if I'm happy with all of that, job done. So just to prove it, if I go back to history, right, yep, go back to history, and let's see, do it, lever, copy, yes, he did all that. So if I go back to history and say, right, I want to, if I then put my cursor on the actual border, so this is the actual border 50 action, and press play, voila. All right, and just to prove that it works on all images now, if I go and bring another image in, so this one's food orientated, this video, as you can see. All right, so here's one, bit of food. Once again, I'm going to give myself the same border, click on border 50 and press play. And there you have it. And the border is exactly the same as the last one. Hope this makes sense. This is one way of doing it. There's other things, of course, we can add to this whole thing. I think one of the things which I talked about in class not too long ago was adding up some sort of a signature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here, go back to history. So I'm changing this particular one. I'll do the same with this one. All right. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a logo and add it to that border 50. So it's going to be called border 50 logo, just to change things up a little bit. Or I could have a separate one for the logo, but you know, if I've got the logo as well on there, I think that would be a nice thing to do. So here we go. Challenge is on. New. And because it's a logo, I'm going to create a logo, call it logo. So this is creating a new document completely. So a blank one, 500 pixels by 500 pixels. I'm all right with everything else there. Oops, this is in millimeters. Let's go out of here. Let's try that again. 500. Yep, pixels. Yep, okay, and then say okay. So I've got what looks like just a white box at the moment, and this is going to contain my logo. I'm actually going to shapes because I've got a logo in mind. So if you come over to your toolbar and go to custom shape tool, and the one I have in mind is the actual R, which is the register mark. And if I then layer, go back on layer, yep, I'll give it its own layer. Right, so if I then, so I've given it a blank layer here. If I draw it out, I could have held shift down to keep the perspective, but it's done a good enough job. So I'm happy with that. That's what I was actually after. And And if I'm happy, I'll just simply press away. And then if I take the visibility of this one, you can see it. It's there. So as I'm on this layer now, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to create a Control T, which allows me to transform it, and I just simply want to put it on an angle so it doesn't look like the registered trademark as it is. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And then while I've got the move tool still on, I'm just going to look at like, yeah, that will work for me as is. All right, if that's the case, then next thing I want to do is crop it. I don't need it so large, obviously, so I'm just going to crop it down. And I know it'll go black because of the fact that it's on the transparent, but when you take the crop tool off, it should come back. There we go. And go. There we go. Happy with that. Right, so that's going to be my logo. Now you could create obviously any logo you could possibly think of. I've created something which has got a transparent background for obvious reasons. I don't particularly want it to go a square. I just simply want to show you this circle here with the R in it. And so therefore when I'm saving it now, which is what I'm about to do, I save it as a PNG file. So to save that as PNG, I'll go into Save to Web. And where it asks you up here what kind of file you want, there we go, PNG 8, and happy with that. Okay, so you can see that's what you're going to get. That's what it started off, that's what you're going to get. And then you press save. Put it somewhere that you can find it. In this particular case, I'm going to put it in my video file and go into 14 and leave it in here. It's called logo.png. And then press save. Okay, all right, now you've got to keep in mind wherever you create and put this logo, the system, especially as you're going to build a action around it, the system's going to come back and each time try and find it in that same location. So don't move it from there. Put it in a location that you won't be tempted to move it. I'm putting it in my actions folder because obviously I'm creating an actions video, but for you guys, put it in my pictures or something that you're not going to, you're not going to play with in any shape or form, or move the folder. Okay, so come back to my initial image, and I've got a whole bunch of things here. So what I can do at this point is set up, just come in and tell it to keep on recording from the last time I stopped. So last thing I asked it to do was put in the merge. So I'm actually going to run this through. Hang on. I'm going to run it through, get to this bit, alright, put it on here, and then press record. So what should happen now is it's going to pick up from where it left off, which the last thing I asked the recording to do was to merge the layers, yes? So now at this point, I'm going to come in and say place. And all I really want it to do is bring that logo PNG file onto the whole thing, which it has now done. I'm happy with that. And I'm not worried about placing it as in sizing it and all of that at this stage, because of course every image is going to be different dimensions. So I'm not worried about that. I just want to make sure it's on my screen. If it's on my screen, I think the only thing I'd want to do is say yes to that. And I think I would want to just take the opacity down to maybe something like that, 50%. So I put mine at 50%. You may not want to. You may want to have yours at 75%, but it gives you some choices. So I've just changed the layer. And if I'm happy with that, now at this point I don't want to collapse this because I want to manually play with the logo. So at this point I can say stop. And what I would do to finish off. So now the actual action is complete. So if what I would do here after I finish the action is come back to the picture itself, do a control, do a control T, which gives me transforming the action. I'm going to change the action to how I want it to be and put it where I want it to go. So that's the only manual function in this particular case. When I'm finished with that, go and approve it, and the job is done. Okay, Now, let's go and have a look at it from scratch now. Let's hopefully the whole thing worked. And from scratch, oh, that's the other thing I've got to do is check, add, it's border 50 plus layer now, isn't it? Plus logo. So border 50 logo, that's the new name given to it. There we go. So now if I come back to border 50 logo, click on that and press play. Let's see what we get. And there you go. It's done it in an instant. Just to prove it, let's go back to this one. So this one's got nothing on it. Press border 50 logo and press play. And there you have it. And that's done it inside of, I think, 2 seconds. That's not bad going. Something that would take you quite considerably longer. This one, I would simply come in here, Command T or Control T, size it the way you want it, put it where you want to, press, and that's it. And that's all you have to do to each one of the images. Hope this all makes sense to you. Go back through the video several times until you get it right. Basically all I've done, and I'll take you through a quick summary. Let's go back out of here, hold on. Okay, so the summary would be that if you're going to put one of these things together, create yourself a set, which is that middle one here, and that creates, so basically all the actions that you have created will go into your set, and call it whatever you want to call it. I'll call mine my actions. Then you're going to create an action itself, which is the set button next to the dustbin in the actions panel. And when you start that, it then starts to record everything that you do. Some of you are going to have problems with this. Remember, if you're going to call in something, you're going to make sure that it's always going to be there for every image, and that is a little bit of fun and games when you're playing with more advanced action parts, but this is a good starter for you. So once you called in and you ask it to do stuff and you finished, then press stop, which is the one on the outside. So this will light up in red. Stop here. Once you've stopped, you can then go back and test it. Use the history one. It's the easiest thing to do. Use history, go back to the top of history, and you can go back and test it to make sure it works. Hope you have a good time doing this. Hope this all makes sense. See you at the next video.